The conference chamber floated in deep space, far from any star system. Inside, representatives from 15 different species gathered around a circular table made of crystallized light. They had come to discuss a problem that seemed simple enough to solve. The humans had expanded into 3 new star systems without asking permission from anyone. Ambassador Realm spread his clawed hands across the glowing surface. His scales reflected the blue light as he addressed the assembly. These creatures call themselves humans. They come from a small planet in an unremarkable system. We have studied them for 2 cycles now, and I can assure you all that they pose no threat whatsoever. The holographic display showed images of Earth, humans playing in parks with their young, humans sitting in cafes drinking warm beverages, humans laughing at entertainment on small screens. The alien representatives watched with growing amusement. "Look at them," said Chancellor Vorn, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "They cannot even breathe most atmospheric mixtures. Their bodies break from simple impacts. They require constant nutrition and water. How did such a fragile species even achieve space travel?" A small amphibious creature named Tilth raised one webbed hand. "I have reviewed their historical databases. There are some concerning patterns in their developmental records. Perhaps we should consider negotiation instead of confrontation." The chamber filled with sounds that resembled laughter in a dozen different languages. Realm waved dismissively. Negotiation? With a species that has not even discovered plasma shielding. They still use chemical propulsion for half their vessels. Their largest warship carries fewer weapons than our scout ships. "But their expansion rate is unprecedented," Tilth insisted. "In just 200 cycles, they went from ground-based civilization to interstellar presence. That acceleration is unusual." Vorn silenced the small creature with a gesture. "Irrelevant. The Dravic Empire has conquered 47 species across this sector. Each time we offered them a choice. Submit peacefully and join our coalition, or face military action. The humans will be no different." The vote was unanimous except for Tilth's single objection. The Council authorized the Dravic fleet to move against human colonies. They would start with the outermost settlement, a place the humans called Haven's Rest. Intelligence reported only 10,000 colonists living there, mostly families involved in mining operations. 300 Dravic warships departed from their staging area. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Their shields could withstand direct nuclear strikes. Their computers calculated that human surrender would occur within 6 hours of the first demonstration of force. Fleet Commander Gorsh reviewed the tactical data as his armada crossed into human space. The colony had no military installations. Their orbital stations were designed for cargo transfer, not defense. A few civilian shuttles moved between the surface and the stations, completely unaware of the approaching doom. "This will be over before their distress signal reaches Earth," Gorsh told his senior officers. "We will accept their surrender, install a Dravic governor, and move to the next colony. The Council expects us to secure all 5 human settlements within 1 lunar cycle." His tactical officer nodded. "Our sensors detect no weapon systems. They have some industrial equipment on the surface, but nothing that could threaten even our smallest vessel. Commander, this is beneath us. We should send a single ship to accept their submission." Gorsh considered this but shook his head. "The Council wants overwhelming force displayed. We will make the humans understand how outmatched they are. Full fleet deployment. I want every ship visible on their sensors. Let them see what awaits any species that expands without permission." The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Haven's Rest system. Immediately, they broadcast their message on all frequencies. "Surrender within 1 hour or face complete destruction. No negotiations. No alternatives." Gorsh waited for the panicked response. He expected pleas for mercy, perhaps offers of tribute. Definitely the rapid evacuation of the orbital stations as civilians fled to the surface. Instead, 6 hours passed in silence. The human stations continued their normal operations. Cargo shuttles kept flying their routes. It was as if the Dravik fleet did not exist. "Are they receiving our transmissions?" Gorsh demanded. "Yes, Commander. All frequencies are clear. They have acknowledged receipt but sent no reply." "Then they choose destruction. Target their largest orbital station. Fire one plasma burst. Show them we are serious." The weapons officer hesitated. "Commander, there are civilians on that station. Families, children." "They were warned, fire." A single bolt of superheated plasma crossed the void. It struck the station's outer ring, exactly where the calculations predicted. The explosion should have vaporized that entire section. Instead, the plasma dissipated against an energy field that should not have existed. "Shields," Gorsh stood from his command seat. "They have defensive shields. Our intelligence said they lacked that technology." Before anyone could answer, the human orbital station rotated. Panels opened along its hull. What emerged were not weapons in any traditional sense. They were mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids. But physics does not care about original intent. A laser powerful enough to slice rock can slice through ship hulls just as easily. 3 Dravik frigates exploded before they could raise their shields. The mining lasers fired again, targeting the fleet's sensor arrays. Gorsh watched in disbelief as his technological advantage evaporated. These were not military weapons, but they were effective nonetheless. Then came the message from the colony, a simple text transmission. No video, no audio, just words on a screen. "You were warned. Leave now or learn why Earth does not ask permission." Gorsh stared at those words. Something cold moved through his body, a sensation he had not felt in many cycles. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. These humans were not fleeing. They were not begging. They were fighting back with mining equipment and refusing to show any signs of submission. "All ships," he said slowly, "maintain formation. Prepare for orbital bombardment. If they will not surrender, we will remove their ability to resist." The fleet moved into attack position. 300 warships against 10,000 colonists. The mathematics seemed simple, but Gorsh could not shake the feeling that something fundamental in his understanding had just broken. These humans were not behaving like any conquered species he had ever encountered. They were behaving like they believed they could win. The bombardment began at dawn, Haven's rest time. Plasma bolts fell from the sky like burning rain. They struck the defensive shields that surrounded the main settlement, each impact sending cascades of energy across the invisible barrier. Inside the underground shelters, 10,000 colonists waited and listened to the sounds of war. Amy Walsh stood in the operations center, 3 levels below the surface. She had been the colony director for 5 years, managing mining quotas and supply shipments. Nothing in that job description prepared her for this moment. Yet here she was, coordinating a defense against an alien invasion force. "Shield generators holding at 70%, reported one of her engineers. But they were designed for meteor strikes, not sustained military bombardment. We have maybe 12 hours before they fail." Amy nodded. She had already known that. The real question was what they could accomplish in those 12 hours. What about the message to Earth? "Sent 9 hours ago. Even at maximum FTL speed, help is 3 days away." 3 days. They had to survive for 3 days against 300 warships. The mathematics were impossible, but Amy had learned something important during her years on Haven's Rest. Humans did not surrender just because the mathematics looked bad. "Deploy the drones," she ordered. Across the colony, mining drones lifted off from their storage facilities. These machines were designed to strip minerals from asteroids, equipped with powerful cutting tools and maneuvering thrusters. Under normal circumstances, They were slow and predictable, but normal circumstances had ended the moment the Dravik fleet arrived. Hiro Tanaka had spent the last 6 hours reprogramming every drone in the colony's inventory. He removed their safety protocols, overrode their speed limiters, filled their cargo holds with refined metals and rocks. What emerged were not mining drones anymore. They were kinetic missiles. In orbit, Gorsh watched his tactical display with growing frustration. The human shields were weakening, exactly as predicted, but the cost was higher than anticipated. His fleet had already expended 10% of their plasma reserves just hammering at those barriers. Then his sensors detected the new threat. "Commander, we have multiple small craft launching from the surface. Analyzing their composition. They appear to be industrial equipment, sir." "Industrial equipment," Gorsh leaned forward. "Destroy them before they reach orbit." The Dravik point defense systems activated. Laser grids designed to intercept missiles and torpedoes locked onto the approaching drones. The first wave of drones died before they could climb out of the atmosphere, but there were more. So many more. The humans launched 300 drones in under 2 minutes. The Dravik defense systems were efficient but not unlimited. They could track multiple targets, prioritize threats, calculate intercept solutions. What they could not do was handle the fact that these targets were not trying to evade. The drones flew straight at the Dravik ships, no fancy maneuvers, no attempts at survival. Hiro watched from his console as his creations found their targets. Each drone carried several tons of refined iron in its cargo hold. When they impacted against Dravik shields at orbital velocity, the results were spectacular. The shields held against the first few impacts, but the humans had turned physics into a weapon. Mass times velocity equals force. Enough force, applied repeatedly, breaks anything. A Dravik cruiser lost its shields after the 7th drone strike. The 8th drone punched through its hull and detonated inside the ship's reactor core. The explosion took out 2 nearby frigates as debris spread across their flight path. "Status report," Gorsh demanded. 5 ships destroyed, 15 with shield damage, 20 more reporting hull breaches. "Commander, these are suicide weapons. The humans are not trying to fight us. They are trying to make us bleed for every meter we take." Gorsh understood tactics. He had studied warfare at the finest Dravik academies. He had conquered species who fought back with everything they had. But there was something different about this approach. The humans were not trying to win. They were trying to make victory so expensive that even winning would feel like losing. "Order all ships to pull back to maximum bombardment range. We will reduce the colony to ash from a distance they cannot reach." But the humans had already anticipated that move. As the Dravik fleet repositioned, construction mechs emerged from underground hangars. These massive machines were designed to build colony structures, equipped with industrial lasers for cutting and welding. Davis Reed, former military logistics officer turned colony security chief, had supervised their modification. The mechs were not fast. They were not agile, but they were tough, built to operate in environments that would kill unprotected humans. And their lasers, designed to cut through metal beams and rock, could cut through Dravik armor just as easily. 2 mechs positioned themselves on high ridges overlooking the colony. When the Dravik fleet moved into their new bombardment positions, the mechs opened fire. The range was extreme, the targeting solutions difficult. But the humans did not need perfect accuracy. They just needed to be a threat. One mech scored a direct hit on a Dravik destroyer, punching through its engine section. The ship lost power and began to drift. Another shot disabled a cruiser's weapons array. The Dravik fleet was forced to adjust again, moving even further away, reducing their bombardment efficiency even more. Gorsh slammed his fist against his command chair. "This is absurd. We have 300 ships. They have mining equipment and construction machines. How are we losing this engagement?" His tactical officer spoke carefully. "We are not losing, Commander, But we are not winning as quickly as projected. The humans are fighting asymmetrically. Every weapon we face was originally designed for peaceful purposes. Our tactical computers did not account for this level of improvisation. Deep in the operations center, Amy allowed herself a small smile. The shields were down to 50%. The drones were exhausted. The mechs would run out of power soon. But they had bought time. More importantly, they had sent a message to whoever was watching this battle. Humans could turn anything into a weapon. Give them a shovel, and they would find a way to fight with it. Give them mining equipment, and they would hold off a fleet. They were adaptable in ways that most species had forgotten how to be. The real question was what would happen when Earth's military arrived. If colonists with mining equipment could do this much damage, what could actual human warriors accomplish? Gorsh was about to find out. Admiral Patricia Lynn stood in the command center of the UDS Thunderchild, watching the tactical display update in real time. Her fleet of 50 warships had dropped out of FTL at the edge of Haven's rest system. The scene before her was chaos. Dravik ships scattered across orbital space, damaged vessels leaking atmosphere, debris fields marking where others had died. And in the middle of it all, one small human colony still broadcasting its defiant signal. "Analysis," she said calmly. Her tactical officer pulled up the data. The Dravik fleet arrived with 300 ships. Current count shows 240 operational vessels. The colonists have been fighting for 4 days using improvised weapons. Shield generators failed 6 hours ago, but the Dravik have not attempted a ground assault. Lynn raised an eyebrow. They are afraid of the ground assault. After losing 60 ships to mining drones and construction equipment, they don't want to find out what the colonists have prepared on the surface. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Dravik fleet commander." "Put it through." Gorsh's face appeared on the screen. His scales looked dull, his eyes tired. "Human fleet, you will withdraw immediately. This system is now under Dravik control by order of the Galactic Council. Your colonists fired on our vessels unprovoked. We demand their surrender and yours." Lynn smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Commander Gorsh, I am Admiral Patricia Lynn of Earth's United Defense Fleet. Let me explain something to you. Those colonists you have been fighting are miners, farmers, engineers, families trying to build a new life on a frontier world, and they held you off for 4 days." She paused, letting that sink in. "Now you face actual human military forces, so I am going to give you one chance. Withdraw from this system immediately, and we will allow you to leave intact. Refuse, and you will learn exactly why Earth does not ask permission before expanding." Gorsh's expression hardened. "You have 50 ships, I have 240. Your arrogance will be your end." "Then let's begin your education." The Dravik fleet moved to intercept, confident in their numerical advantage. They had fought the colonists and learned to respect human improvisation, but surely trained military forces would still follow predictable patterns. Attack formations, defensive screens, standard fleet tactics. The Dravik had centuries of experience in fleet combat. They knew every variation, every strategy. What they did not know was that human warfare had never followed predictable patterns. The human fleet split into 5 groups and accelerated in different directions. The Dravik formation adjusted to pursue, exactly as Lynn had anticipated. Then the human ships did something no Dravik computer had modeled. They shut down their main engines and used maneuvering thrusters to flip their orientation 180 degrees. Now they were flying backward, main weapons pointing at the pursuing Dravik vessels. The barrage was devastating. Human railguns fired solid projectiles at a significant percentage of light speed. No energy shields, no plasma, just dense metal moving fast enough to punch through any armor. The Dravik shields held against the first impacts, but human targeting systems had identified weak points in shield coverage. The next volley aimed for those gaps. 8 Dravik ships died in the opening salvo. 12 more took critical damage. The fleet formation broke apart as individual commanders tried to adapt to this unconventional attack pattern. General Robert Kim watched from the assault carrier Valiant. His Marines were not needed yet, but he knew that would change. The Admiral was setting up the perfect conditions for a boarding action. Human ships were smaller and faster than Dravik vessels, built for close-range combat. Every tactical doctrine in the galaxy said this was suicidal. You did not get close to enemy warships. Humans did it anyway. 3 human destroyers accelerated toward a damaged Dravik battleship. Point defense fire shredded one destroyer, but the other 2 reached their target. Magnetic clamps locked onto the hull. Cutting torches began their work. Within minutes, 200 human Marines breached into the enemy ship. The Dravik crew had never trained for boarding actions. Why would they? Modern warfare happened at ranges measured in thousands of kilometers. Ships fought with energy weapons and missiles. You did not physically board enemy vessels. That was archaic, primitive. The humans did not care about archaic or primitive. They cared about effective. Kim's Marines fought through the Dravik battleship in brutal close-quarters combat. Human weapons were loud, chemical-based, and terrifyingly efficient in enclosed spaces. The Dravik had energy rifles that were more advanced in every measurable way, but energy rifles needed to recalibrate for different atmospheric pressures and compositions. Human bullets worked the same way everywhere. The battleship fell in 40 minutes. Kim stood on its bridge and opened a channel to the Dravik crew. "You are prisoners of war. You will be treated according to the standards of the Geneva Convention. Medical aid is being provided to your wounded. Remain calm and you will not be harmed." The Dravik had expected execution. That was the standard practice in galactic warfare. Defeated enemies were either enslaved or killed. This concept of prisoners being treated well confused them almost as much as the boarding action itself. Across the battle space, similar scenes played out. Human ships did not fight the way the Dravik expected. They used false retreats to draw enemies into ambushes. They broadcast false sensor readings to create phantom targets. They hacked Dravik communication networks and sent contradictory orders. Every tactic was unconventional. Every strategy broke the established rules of engagement. Yuki Sato worked from the intelligence vessel Discovery. Her team had been studying Dravik psychology and tactics for years, just in case this day came. Now that knowledge paid off. She knew the Dravik were hierarchical. Orders flowed from the top down with little flexibility for individual initiative, so she targeted their command structure. "Admiral, I am sending you targeting priorities. These are the command ships. If we eliminate or capture them, the rest of the fleet will lose coordination." Lin smiled. "Excellent work. All units knew targeting priorities incoming. Focus on the flagships." The Dravik fleet was larger. Their ships had better shields and more powerful weapons. By every traditional measure of military strength, they should have won. But warfare was never just about technology. It was about adapting to circumstances, about using the terrain, the situation, the enemy's expectations against them. And humans had 10,000 years of practice at that particular art. Gorsh watched his fleet disintegrate. The humans were everywhere, fighting with a creativity that seemed impossible. His ships followed their programming, their tactical doctrines, their established procedures. The humans ignored all of that and simply did whatever worked. "All ships," he transmitted, "retreat, full withdrawal to the rally point." But even retreat was not simple. The human fleet pursued, harrying the Dravik as they tried to flee. More ships fell. More crews surrendered rather than face human boarding parties. By the time the surviving Dravik vessels escaped into FTL, Gorsh had lost more than half his fleet, and the humans had not even deployed their full strength yet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of receiving Gorsh's retreat transmission. The chamber that had been filled with laughter and confidence now held only tension and disbelief. The holographic displays showed the battle footage on repeat, human ships moving in impossible patterns, colonists fighting with mining equipment, Dravik vessels retreating from a numerically inferior force. Chancellor Vorn watched the footage for the fifth time, his three eyes fixed on a particular moment where human marines boarded a battleship and captured it intact. "This is impossible," he said quietly. "The Dravik are our finest warriors. How did primitives defeat them?" Tilth, the small amphibious observer who had warned against this war, spoke from his seat. "I tried to tell you. I presented the data on human development. Their history shows constant warfare spanning thousands of years. While we were building peaceful civilizations, they were perfecting the art of killing each other." "History is irrelevant," snapped War Master Drennick. The massive insectoid warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton covered in ceremonial armor. "Technology determines victory. We have superior weapons, superior shields, superior everything." "Except adaptability," Tilth countered. He pulled up a different display showing Earth's evolutionary environment. "Look at their homeworld. Gravity is 30% higher than galactic standard. Oxygen levels would be toxic to most species. Atmospheric pressure would crush our bones. Weather patterns that swing from freezing to boiling. Predators at every level of the food chain. The humans did not develop on a planet. They developed in a death trap." The council members studied the data with growing concern. Species from peaceful garden worlds looked at Earth statistics and felt something they rarely experienced: fear. A Croshan scientist named Pell stood up. She had been analyzing human physiology for the past several cycles. "I have completed my assessment of human biology. The results are disturbing. Their muscle density is significantly higher than ours because they evolved in high gravity. Their cardiovascular system can function under extreme stress. They can survive injuries that would kill most of us. And their brains are wired for pattern recognition and creative problem solving under pressure." "So they are durable," Vorn dismissed. "That does not explain their tactical superiority." "You are missing the point," Pell insisted. "Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds where cooperation was rewarded and conflict was rare. We developed technology because we had peaceful, stable environments. Humans developed technology while fighting each other constantly. They did not invent space travel to explore. They invented it to gain military advantage." Drennick's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Then we will use overwhelming force. I will personally lead the Grand Armada, 2,000 ships from 12 species. We will strike at Earth directly. Cut off the head and the body will fall." Ambassador Realm stood suddenly. "No, this is madness. We attacked them unprovoked. They defended themselves. We should negotiate peace." "Peace?" Vorn's voice dripped with contempt. "The Dravik are humiliated. Our reputation across the galaxy is damaged. We cannot show weakness now. The Grand Armada will teach these humans their place." The vote was called. This time 6 species abstained. 3 voted against military action, but the majority supported the Armada. Drennick would have his war. Meanwhile, across human space, a different kind of preparation was underway. Earth's shipyards operated at maximum capacity. The captured Dravik vessels were being studied by teams of engineers who worked without sleep. Every piece of alien technology was analyzed, tested, and adapted. Yuki Sato and her intelligence division presented their findings to the military leadership. "The aliens have not changed their tactics in over 2 centuries. They rely on technological superiority and overwhelming force. Individual initiative is discouraged. Creativity in combat is seen as dishonorable. They are predictable." Admiral Lin studied the tactical projections. "They are planning to strike at Earth, probably hoping we will surrender to protect our homeworld." "Will we?" asked one of the admirals. Lin laughed. "Have they learned nothing? We are humans. We have fought countless wars on our own planet. We have survived ice ages, plagues, asteroids, and our own stupidity. We have never surrendered when our home was threatened. Why would we start now? Construction of new warships accelerated, but these were not purely human designs anymore. Engineers had incorporated Dravik shielding technology, Kroshan power systems, energy weapons from half a dozen different species. The aliens had better technology, but humans had something more valuable. They could learn. They could adapt. They could take enemy advantages and turn them into their own strengths. Special operations teams began deploying across Council space. They used captured Dravik ships to infiltrate enemy territory. Their missions were not about destruction. They targeted supply lines, communication networks, and morale. Every raid was designed to spread fear and uncertainty. The aliens had thought humans were weak. Now they learned that humans could be everywhere, unpredictable and dangerous. One team intercepted a Kroshan supply convoy and replaced the cargo with humanitarian aid packages. Food, medical supplies, and a simple message. Earth does not want war, but we will finish what you started. Another team hacked into Council communications and broadcast footage of the Haven's Rest battle. Not propaganda, just raw footage of colonists fighting against impossible odds, of families defending their homes, of humans refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. The message spread across Council space, and for the first time, member species began to question if this war was justified. Tilth worked quietly behind the scenes, gathering allies among the Council members who had voted against the war. Species who understood that this conflict could only end in disaster. They could not stop the Grand Armada from launching, but they could prepare for the aftermath. Because one thing was becoming clear to anyone who studied human history. Humans did not fight wars to win territory or resources. They fought to ensure their survival and to punish those who threatened them. The Council had threatened human colonies. They had killed human civilians. They had started a war assuming the humans would be easy to defeat. Now they would learn what happened when you attacked Earth and failed to finish what you started. The Grand Armada was assembling. 2,000 ships, the largest military force ever gathered in this sector of the galaxy. It should have been enough to conquer any enemy. But the humans were not just any enemy. They were a species that had clawed its way to the top of a death world's food chain. A species that turned every setback into a lesson and every defeat into fuel for eventual victory. A species that had spent its entire existence preparing for exactly this kind of fight. The Armada would attack Earth expecting to find a frightened civilization willing to negotiate surrender. Instead, they would find something that the galaxy had not seen in centuries. They would find humanity at war, and that was a sight that would haunt them for generations. The Grand Armada emerged from FTL at the edge of the Sol system. 2,000 warships from 12 different species spread across space in a formation designed to intimidate. War Master Drennick stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable, and studied the sensor readings with satisfaction. The humans had only 200 ships positioned near Earth. The mathematics were decisive. All vessels, he transmitted, begin the advance, maintain formation, demonstrate our power. The humans will surrender when they see what opposes them. But the first anomaly appeared before they reached Neptune's orbit. The sensors detected thousands of small objects scattered throughout the outer system. They were not warships. They were too small for that. The tactical computers classified them as debris or asteroids and ignored them. Until they started moving. Automated defense platforms activated across a sphere billions of kilometers wide. Each platform was simple: a sensor array, a maneuvering system, and a payload of kinetic kill vehicles. They were cheap to build and easy to deploy. Humans had scattered them throughout their solar system like seeds, waiting for exactly this kind of invasion. The platforms launched their payloads. Thousands of small missiles accelerated toward the Armada. Each missile carried no explosives, no warheads, nothing but dense metal and velocity. They did not need anything else. At the speeds they traveled, they hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. Drennick watched in disbelief as his forward screen of ships took damage. Shields flickered and failed under the sustained barrage. 3 cruisers and a battleship were destroyed before the Armada could adjust its formation. These were not sophisticated weapons. They were barely more than rocks thrown at high speed, but there were so many of them. "Continue the advance," Drennick ordered. "Destroy those platforms as we pass. They cannot stop us." The Armada pushed deeper into the Sol system. At Uranus, they encountered the second layer of defense. Mines. Thousands of them, drifting in patterns that seemed random until the Armada was in the middle of them. Then they detonated in coordinated waves, not trying to destroy ships but to disrupt formations and damage sensors. By the time they reached Saturn, the Armada had lost 40 ships, not to mighty warships or advanced weapons, to automated defenses and mines. Drennick felt frustration building. This was not warfare. This was attrition. The humans were making every meter of space costly. "How much further to Earth?" he demanded. "At current speed, 18 hours. But Commander, I must report that our fuel reserves are lower than projected. The constant maneuvering to avoid mines and platforms has increased consumption significantly." Drennick had not considered that. Every dodge, every course correction, every shield activation consumed resources. The humans were not trying to stop the Armada. They were trying to exhaust it. At Jupiter, human ships finally engaged. But they did not come out to fight in open space. They hid in the gas giants' radiation belts and moon shadows, darting out to launch attacks before retreating. The Armada's superior weapons could not hit enemies they could not see. The humans used Jupiter's magnetic field to scramble sensors and used the massive planet's gravity to slingshot attack runs that came from unexpected angles. Lisa Okonkwo commanded the stealth frigate Nightfall from her position near Ganymede. Her ship was coated in materials that absorbed sensor sweeps and reflected almost no radiation. To alien sensors, she was just another piece of orbital debris, until she fired. Her railgun shot traveled 300 kilometers and punched through a Crochan destroyer's engine section. The ship lost power and began to drift into Jupiter's gravity well. By the time the Armada located Nightfall's position, the frigate had already relocated. "All stealth units," she transmitted on encrypted channels. "Continue harassment, make them afraid of every shadow." Across the Jupiter system, 50 stealth ships executed the same strategy. Attack and fade, strike from the darkness and vanish. Never give the enemy a clear target. It was not about winning battles. It was about creating paranoia. Drennick ordered the Armada to blast through the Jupiter system at maximum speed. Remaining, there meant continued losses with no gain. But that decision cost them fuel and time. The humans had successfully delayed the Armada by another 8 hours, and every hour gave Earth more time to prepare. At Mars, the Armada encountered organized resistance. A full human battle group waited in orbital position. 200 human warships against 1,700 alien vessels. The mathematics still favored the Armada overwhelmingly, but Drennick had learned to distrust mathematics when fighting humans. Admiral Lin transmitted from the Thunderchild. "War Master Drennick, you have lost 260 ships just reaching Mars. We have barely engaged you. Turn back now, while you still have a fleet to command." Drennick felt rage surge through him. "You are outnumbered nearly 9 to 1. You have exhausted your tricks. Surrender or be destroyed." Humans do not surrender when defending their home. You are about to learn why. The battle began with an artillery barrage unlike anything the Armada had experienced. Human ships had been equipped with mass drivers that could accelerate projectiles to incredible velocities. The kinetic energy from each shot was equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. The Armada's shields handled the first volley. The second volley targeted the exact same points. The third volley punched through. But the real surprise came from Mars itself. hidden bases on the planet's surface activated. They were not orbital platforms. They were ground-based railguns, massive weapons built into the bedrock of the planet. They used Mars's rotation to add velocity to their shots, launching projectiles that moved at a significant percentage of light speed. An entire wing of Crossan battleships simply ceased to exist when those weapons fired. The projectiles passed through their formation like bullets through paper. There was no defense. No shield could stop that much kinetic energy. The human fleet did not try to match the Armada in a direct fight. They used Mars's gravity for cover. They coordinated their attacks with the surface weapons. They broadcast false sensor data and hacked alien communication networks. Every advantage of technology was countered by human tactical flexibility. General Kim's Marines executed boarding actions again, but this time they targeted specific ships. Command vessels, carriers with valuable fighter craft, support ships carrying fuel and ammunition. Each captured vessel weakened the Armada's logistics. Neil Anderson coordinated Earth's defensive AI network from a bunker deep beneath the Rockies. His systems controlled millions of defensive platforms, mines, and weapons batteries. The alien tactical computers were more advanced, but they operated independently. Anderson's network was unified, constantly adapting, learning from every engagement. "They are trying to overwhelm us with numbers," he reported to the command staff. "But numbers mean nothing if you cannot coordinate them effectively. Their fleet is too large, too many different species with different tactical doctrines. They are fighting as a coalition, not as a unified force." The battle for Mars lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Armada had lost another 300 ships. The human fleet had lost 40 vessels. But more importantly, the Armada's fuel reserves were critical. Many ships were running on emergency power. Ammunition stocks were depleted. Crew morale was breaking. Drennick stared at the tactical display. Earth was only hours away. They could still reach it. They could still bombard the planet. But at what cost? And even if they reached Earth, what would they face there? He made his decision. War Master Drennick transmitted the withdrawal order at 400 hours, Earth Standard Time. The Grand Armada, once 2,000 ships strong, began its retreat with barely 900 vessels still combat-capable. Some captains refused the order. Pride demanded they continue. Drennick executed 3 of them personally before the others complied. The retreat was not peaceful. Human forces harried the Armada all the way back to the edge of the Sol system. They captured damaged vessels. They destroyed ships that fell behind. They made absolutely certain that every surviving alien understood the cost of attacking Earth. 6 months passed before Drennick returned to Galactic Council space. His flagship limped into dock at Station Gamma 7, bearing scars from a dozen battles. The warrior who had left confident and proud returned defeated and humbled. The council chamber was different now. Several species had withdrawn their membership. Others had demanded Vorn's resignation. The coalition that had seemed so strong had fractured completely, and now they faced a new problem. The humans were coming not to conquer but to negotiate, and they were coming from a position of absolute strength. President Sarah Mitchell arrived on Station Gamma 7 with an escort of 20 warships. Not enough to threaten the station, but enough to make a statement. Earth would not be ignored anymore. She walked into the council chamber wearing a simple suit, carrying no weapons, accompanied only by Ambassador David Ortiz and Admiral Lin. The remaining council members watched her with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity. This was the leader of the species that had defeated the Grand Armada. Some had expected a warrior. Instead, they saw a diplomat who moved with quiet confidence. "Members of the Galactic Council," Mitchell began. "6 months ago, you authorized military action against human colonies. You did this without provocation, without negotiation, without even attempting peaceful contact. You assumed we were weak because we were different. That assumption cost you more than 800 warships and thousands of lives. Vorn started to speak, but Mitchell raised one hand. I am not finished. Your attack on Haven's Rest killed 237 human civilians, colonists who were simply trying to build a new life. Their blood is on your hands, but I am not here seeking revenge. She paused, letting that statement sink in. I am here to ensure this never happens again. Earth hereby demands the following. First, immediate recognition of human sovereignty over all systems we currently occupy. Second, reparations for damages to our colonies and compensation for families of those killed. Third, the resignation of Chancellor Vorn and any council members who voted for the initial attack. The chamber erupted in protests. Tilth, who had opposed the war from the beginning, simply watched Mitchell with something resembling respect. You cannot dictate terms to us, shouted one council member. We are the Galactic Council. We govern this entire sector. Mitchell smiled. You were the Galactic Council. Look around you. Half your members have left. Your military is shattered. Your economy is in chaos because trade routes are disrupted, and Earth controls the jump points into 3 major trade hubs. We are not dictating terms. We are offering you a way forward that does not end in total collapse. Ambassador Ortiz stepped forward with a data pad. We have compiled evidence of Council war crimes, attacks on civilian targets, execution of prisoners, use of prohibited weapons. We could take this to every species in the galaxy, broadcast it on every frequency, show everyone exactly what the Council has become. But we would prefer partnership, Mitchell continued. Earth has no interest in ruling other species. We simply want to exist peacefully and freely. We want our sovereignty respected. In exchange, we are willing to share some of the technology we have developed, medical advances, agricultural techniques, even some military innovations for defensive purposes. Drennick stood slowly. The massive warrior looked smaller now, diminished by defeat. I fought your forces across your entire solar system. I studied your tactics, your weapons, your determination. You are warriors unlike any I have encountered, but you show mercy to defeated enemies. You treat prisoners well. You fight to defend, not to conquer. Why? Mitchell met his gaze. Because we remember what it feels like to be powerless. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We know the cost of war. We know the suffering it brings. We learned eventually that strength without wisdom is just violence. We are strong because we had to be, but we choose to be merciful because we want to be. Tilth spoke for the first time. The Council owes you an apology, President Mitchell. I tried to warn them. I showed them your history, your capabilities. They would not listen. Pride blinded them. I hope that we can move forward from this tragedy and build something better. That is why I am here, Mitchell replied. Not to punish, but to establish a foundation for peace. Earth is willing to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects, not conquerors, equals. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, the Council accepted Earth's terms. Vorn resigned in disgrace. New leadership was elected, including Tilth as one of the senior members. Reparations were agreed upon. And most importantly, formal recognition of human sovereignty was granted. Over the following years, the relationship between Earth and the Council evolved. Human embassies opened on 20 different worlds. Alien diplomats came to Earth and marveled at the planet that had seemed so unremarkable in initial surveys. They saw the high gravity that made humans naturally stronger. They experienced the weather patterns that taught humans adaptability. They learned about the history of warfare that created tactical genius. But they also learned about human art, music, literature, and philosophy. They discovered that the species capable of such violence was also capable of profound compassion. Human doctors volunteered to work on alien worlds. Human engineers helped struggling colonies solve infrastructure problems. Human teachers shared knowledge freely. Drennick himself became an unlikely friend to humanity. He established a military academy where human and alien officers trained together. He taught alien forces human tactical flexibility, and he never forgot the lesson he learned in the Sol system, that true strength comes not from superior weapons, but from the will to use whatever resources you have creatively. 5 years after the war ended, Haven's Rest had become a multicultural hub. Amy Walsh, now governor of the colony, watched as human children played with Dravik younglings in parks that had once been battlefields. Construction mechs that had fought off an invasion fleet now built schools and hospitals. Ambassador Ortiz stood beside her. "Do you think they finally understand us?" he asked. Amy smiled. "I think they are starting to. They learned that humans can fight. Now they are learning that we prefer not to. They tried to wage war on humanity. Instead, they gained something far more valuable. They gained allies who will stand with them, protect them, and help them become better than they were." In orbit above Haven's Rest, a mixed fleet of human and alien ships conducted joint exercises, former enemies training together, former battlegrounds becoming centers of cooperation. The galaxy had learned its lesson the hard way, but sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that stick the longest. Humanity had proven it could fight. Now it would prove it could build, and that legacy would echo across the stars for generations to come.